live on Facebook on there, and now, come on now. Oh, I'm recording. There we go. Hey, we're up and recording. All right, you ready? All right, Father, we ask that this find people with open eyes and open ears in Jesus' name, amen. Today is Wednesday, August 24th, 2022, and this is Bible study, and we are in a new book, finally. The book of Exodus is where we're at. And this is good. The presentation of this is going to be a little bit different than was for the book of Revelation. This is just going to be videos under the book of Exodus. So you've got the Exodus tab, and then when you click on it, you'll get one to the end. Click on it, and there'll be all the videos for the book of Exodus will be there. Unless it's a BV, and then it might be in both places. But that's neither here nor there. All right, so go ahead and just open your Bible then to the book of Exodus. We're going to pick it up, chapter 1, verse 1. All right, but before we do, let's talk a little bit about the Exodus. Exodus means going out, all right? But it's real important to know what's going out. They're leaving Egypt and they're headed to the Promised Land. Now, when we studied the book of Genesis, we stopped in the first third, basically. It took us from in the beginning all the way through Tower of Babel and post-flood stuff. We skipped a little bit of that, but to get to the Tower of Babel. And that's the first third. Well, the next part to the book of Genesis picks it up with Abraham, all right? Now, through Abraham comes a son named Isaac, all right? And Isaac and Rachel have two children, and their names are Jacob and Esau. Okay, now the Bible says that Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated, yet while he was still in his mother's womb. All right, so he's got a grudge against Esau from the first heaven and earth age, is what it is, because it's not that he hates the baby, just his soul is ticked him off so much. Now, Esau's big deal is he doesn't care anything about his birthright, and he trades it to Jacob because he's the elder brother. All right. But when Rachel's pregnant with these two boys, God tells her, says, you have two nations in your womb. So that's also what Abraham means, is father of many nations. And that was the promise, right? Yeah. And it comes through Isaac to Jacob and Esau is where it starts to pick up. Now, Esau, that's the children of Edom, or the Red Nation, or Rus, which are the ones where we deal with Russian people right today. And that includes even the people that they're fighting right now in Ukraine. It's still Russian people. I mean, even though they have a national division now, but that's still genetically and ethnically the same people, right? So they have a big blessing, even though. Now, part of the thing that went with Esau trading his birthright to Jacob for soup was that part of his punishment was that his people would live away from the fat of the land, right? So that's up above a certain parallel where it's a lot harder to grow food. It's colder. That's why and Russian people are just tough as nails because of the environment that they actually live in makes them forge out pretty tough people. All right, so that's one side of that. All right, now Jacob gets they say steals the birthright basically for soup, and then tricks his dad into giving him the blessing. Now, this is all covered. God ordains all this because it even tells him that the younger brother will serve, or the older brother will serve the younger brother. Now, it's through Jacob comes all the patriarchs, all right? Jacob has 12 sons and one daughter. Each one of those are the patriarchs of the tribes of Israel.
Heads of Israel, yeah.
Right, each one of them. Okay, those are the ones that are going into Egypt. All right. Now, the last part of the book of Genesis, all right, deals with Joseph. All right. Joseph is the youngest of the patriarchs, and he gets kind of the short stick at first because he has some dreams and some visions where all of his elder brothers are bowing before him, and he has no problem.
Isn't he the one that goes and lives with the Pharisees?
Right. Yeah. Okay, now, Yeah. Now, because of this, he doesn't so much mean to. But he really is boasting and bragging about how he's special.
These dreams,
and it ticks, because of these visions and dreams, right? And it really ticks his older brothers off to the point that all of them, but two of them, want to kill him. Wow. All right, and he's like, well, at least there are two that don't. That say don't. I think it's Levi and I can't remember the other one. Might have been Reuben, the oldest one. But they're like, no, we can't, he's our brother, we can't kill him, let's just sell him, all right? So they stick him down in a well, right? So this young kid, because he's just a kid when he goes in, that gets sold as a slave and then bought in Egypt. Yeah. Now, God blesses Joseph in Egypt, all right? And before it's all over with, he goes from he starts out a prisoner in prison, as a slave. And he stays a slave, but he ends up being Pharaoh's right hand.
Yeah.
And that means he speaks for Pharaoh and people do what Joseph says.
Yeah.
All right. And the reason Pharaoh loved him so much was because God blessed Joseph in everything that he did. All right. And he also he gave him a vision about what was going to happen in Egypt. He said, you're going to have 7 real good years, and you're going to have 7 years of drought. He said, and he prepared. So he prepared all of Egypt. Before the drought's over, well, Joseph has made Pharaoh the richest man in the world.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because he prepared, he saved all these other people.
Years surplus.
That's right. And in this drought condition, his brothers come into Egypt, all right? And they end up, their dad Jacob tells them, go, we need grain, we're all going to die, so you have to go to Egypt. And he thinks Joseph's dead. They kill a sheep and rub it with his coat and then give it to his dad and tell him he was attacked by a wild animal and killed on the way back. And so he thinks he's dead. But he tells the rest of the boys, you got to go, you got to get us something to eat. And they do. They go down. When they run into Joseph, when they end up in front of Joseph, they don't recognize him. And all this time, he's a grown man now.
Sure
he's not a kid in the well, right?
In Egypt,
he looks Egyptian. He speaks Egyptian. Yep. He's very familiar with both Hebrew and Egyptian culture. Right, exactly. He looked Egyptian.
Yeah.
And when he spoke Egyptian, so they didn't even know.
Perfect dialect.
Right.
He was a kid.
And you gotta when you read that, it's a good read because you got to think about Joseph. He's sitting there now. He's got his brothers,
and he knows,
the ones that wanted to kill him, right?
Yeah.
He's like, man, and they have no idea who he is, and he does a gut check right there, but he lets him off the hook.
Yeah, of course.
And because of that, now that's who goes into Egypt. There's like 70 people. Yeah. All right. Now they start out in Egypt. Now they're not slaves because Joseph. When they all get there and he tells them who he is and they realize everything and there's no bad blood. Well, Pharaoh gets involved and he gives all his people all this land for their cattle and all this stuff in Egypt. He sets them up. They're by no means slaves.
Yeah.
Now, as time goes by, things begin to change because Egyptians were still Egyptians, right? And they still look down on pretty much everybody else just because they were the archetypal culture at the time, right? Yeah. And so you have all that scene. But anyway, where was
the entire culture is based on after.
That's right. And the Egyptians. All right. Let's see. Where was I with Joseph? Okay, they're all there. He gives them all their land. They're all just set up. Now, over time, they begin to multiply like people do. Right? Yeah. They have it pretty good. So they get more and more ingrained into the culture. Well, now we're talking about from the time that they go into Egypt to the time of the Exodus, we're talking 400 years.
Dang.
All right. Now, over 400 years, things begin to change. Right, that's right. Now there's best guess coming out anywhere between 3 to 4 million people over 400 years. Okay. So they turned into a mighty group, and they went into Egypt to save them, and it really did, and it gives them 400 years. But at the end of the 400 years, they're no longer, nobody remembers Joseph. The Pharaoh's dead that loved Joseph that he took care of, and now there's a whole nother, it's probably a whole nother dynasty involved by then, so
generations upon generations.
Right. So the Hebrew people lost their stature as Joseph's people and become more of a slave group in Egypt because Egypt was still a mighty stronghold. And Egyptians, we're going to study this. Now, a lot of people are under the impression that the Hebrew people built the pyramids. But it never says that in the Bible. It doesn't say that in the Bible. You'll see exactly what it says about that. But Egyptians would never let a slave work on a religious relic, on a religious building. Period. There was Egyptian, craftsmen that worked on it, or paid craftsmen. It may have been some Hebrew, but they were paid craftsmen. And they did different things. But you'll see what they do. It tells them exactly what they do here in the book of Exodus. All right, but that's kind of the setup then for the book of Exodus. Now, in the book of Exodus, we're getting out of Egypt, and they're headed to the Promised Land. That's where it starts to point toward us now. Now, the book of Exodus, as you know from our studies in the book of Revelation, that most of the seals show up here as the plagues in the book of Egypt. The water, turn to blood, all that stuff. All that stuff is part of those seals of the book of Revelation. So you can see that this book is actually tied to that. Moses is one of those, like Joshua is one of those like an archetype for Christ. They're just kind of an example of someone who leads the people at a crucial time, more or less. And Moses is one of those people. Now, you should know then, like Jeremiah, God told Jeremiah, I chose you before I formed you in the womb. Well, Moses is another one then that would have been chosen long before he was ever formed in the womb. This is what he was going to do. So he falls into that election group. Right? So it makes Moses a very interesting character, and one. And of course, we believe from the book of Revelation and New Testament, the Gospels, that probably Elijah and Moses are two prophets at the last days anyway.
Yeah.
So this is a real good book that applies directly to us. One of the ways to look at it, they're going to leave Egypt, they're going to run right to the promised land, but they're going to falter because of giants, because they're worried about fallen angels and giants.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
All right, that's
they
exactly
get there
good. Right, they go right to the edge, right, and they stop. Right, except it's not. It's just a rumor.
It's a rumor. Yeah.
Right. God already wiped them out.
Wasn't there some of them that did go?
Well, yeah, they do. There's 12. You'll get into those, right? Yeah. I think we'll see. But if not, it's in Joshua. Joshua's about it, and a couple of the Deuteronomy and probably Numbers. There's a few times they're talking about. But okay, that gets us. Let's just get into the book. Let's just stop with that. All right, that'd be a good place.
We can talk all night.
All right, that's right. Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob. It's Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls from Jacob, which was in Egypt already, or Joseph, which was in Egypt already. So you got about 70 people all together, and Joseph, which he thinks is dead, is already there running stuff for Pharaoh. All right, and Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation, and the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty in the land. And the land was filled with them. So you got a bunch of them by now. Yeah. You're talking about 400 years.
Right.
And there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Now you're going to find that this is a normal kind of a thing. When in the book of Numbers, they're going to see the same conditions there. Everybody who sees them is afraid. There's so many of them, and they're afraid they're just going to overrun them. All right. Now, the ones that treat the children of Israel good, have no problems. The ones that don't, seem to fall. That's right. They fall one way or another. Right. And that's back up in the Bible says that anybody who blesses Israel will be blessed. Because of it. Right. They're right. The chosen people. Right. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up and out of the land. So he's afraid. And there's just too many, and he's afraid that any of the smaller, let's think about being an Egyptian pharaoh. You got enemies out there. Yeah. Everybody going to treat you like a friend to your face, but everybody involved will cut your throat in the dark.
Right, yeah.
So he's really, really aware of that. And so he's afraid that these people, if they join with even a lesser enemy together, then they could wipe out all of Egypt, and there wouldn't be anything he could do about it. So he has a legit fear here.
Yeah.
But he could have chose another way to deal with it. Instead, this is the things that he does. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And were grieved because of the children of it, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. Think about people. Now, these burdens were harsh, right? But if you're fed good and you work hard, the only thing you do is just end up having more kids.
Yeah, you go strong.
That's right. Yeah, you just go stronger. You have more children. Yeah. So really what they're doing is they're just fueling their own fear, really.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way they're doing it. They could have went another way, but instead, that was the way they choose. Verse 13, and the Egyptian made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. So that's hard work. And by now they're full-on slaves.
Yeah.
By this time they're full-on they're slaves in Egypt. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. Verse 14, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick, in all manner of service in the field, and all their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. So it's all intense labor.
All rough, yeah.
Every bit of it. But look at where they're serving. Hard bondage in mortar and in brick. So they're making blocks, making bricks, and they're moving around. All manner of service in the field. So they're farmhands. That's what they were made to do anyway. They're created to till the ground. Might as well take advantage of it.
Right.
Yeah. And all their service wherein they made them serve with rigor. So none of these are artisan types of things, is what I'm saying. But this is all very intense manual labor.
Yeah.
And all they're really doing is just making the people stronger and even prouder of who they actually are. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Zipporah, and the name of the other was Puah. And they said, when we do the service of midwives to the Hebrew women and see them upon the stools, which was the way they sat on the stool to deliver, okay, and it be a son, then they should kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she should live. So the kings offered to put out an order to the Hebrew midwives to kill all the male children as they're born. Now, they're not going to do it, but verse 17, and the midwives feared God. And then now I'm sure they feared Pharaoh too, but they feared God more.
Right.
All right. And did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have you done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively. Remember, they're doing hard labor, all right, and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. So all they're telling them is that these women are hardy, and they're having the babies before we even get there.
Yeah.
All right. So it sounds good, right? Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. So everything that's going on, it's just like their fear is eating them alive.
Yeah,
everything they fear is everything they do is just making it worse.
Yep.
And the only thing that's really going on is they're just having more and more children. That's all it is. And that's a very important thing about Israel. Wherever they go, they do multiply pretty well. Because, okay, we got I'm Irish, so we got one set of tribes. You're from the Viking run, which is just another set. But all of them left together would simply farm. If they didn't have a reason to be warring against somebody or fight, and then let them fight with each other as much as anything, and that's just the way that is.
Right. Yeah.
But like I said, all of them would be left alone just to multiply and farm if they were left up to their own devices. And Israel's still that way. When you fly into Israel, you can see it. It goes from desert to green, almost instantly. And you can see exactly where, and the things they're doing. I got that video. I need to send it to you. The things they're doing are amazing. It's just some of it's just the simplest of things. I mean, it's really kind of cool. But nonetheless, back to this 21. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh called all of his people, saying, every son that is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. That's chapter 1. Yeah, so that's a pretty rough spot that they're in. The midwives are, being told to kill children, which they're not going to do. But and everything that they do just to ride them harder makes them have more, which makes them more determined. After a while, you can only use fear to dominate people for so long. I mean, and then they just get sick of it. Right, and it's better to die.
I mean,
right, it's just humans. You just get sick of it. Right.
It's proven.
But they're getting ready to leave. Well, relatively, a couple chapters, and we're going to talk about over 80 years.
Right.
So there's a big Moses one, because Moses chapter 2 we're going to start. Moses' life is divided into 3 40-year sections. All right. The first 40 years, you're going to find where he spends it. And then the next 40 years, he spends with his father-in-law. And then the last 40, he spends wandering around in the desert. And then he dies and never gets to set foot in the promised land. All right, God tells him, nope. And he asks him over and over, and he, nope. And he says, don't ask me again. And Moses shuts up about it. But he does get to look at it. All right, but we'll get into all that eventually, too. All right. But nonetheless, here we go with Moses. And there went a man, what time have we got going? Okay, we got a little bit. And there went a man of the house of Levi and took to wife a daughter of Levi. All right, so we're talking about a full-blooded Levite here. And then Elena's coming in. I don't know what she's going on. Levites, that even though it's not applied right now, Levites will become the priest line whenever they're going into the promised land. Yeah. All right, so you already kind of see this setup here because Moses and Aaron, and they got a sister named Miriam. And people talk about women in the Old Testament, but Miriam's prophet is just like Moses and Aaron are. Now, she gets in trouble. She does get in trouble, all right, but she also she gets a little case of leprosy because of it. And then she goes through the cleansing ritual and goes on in her life. But the people want, they say, oh, well, yeah, look what happened to her. Well, yeah, there's a lot of men that were prophets that didn't do so good, too, Man, that nonetheless, but she's a prophetess and calls her one, so that's what she is, right? And then Moses and Aaron, they're right at the top. They're all going to be Levites, all of them, right? And verse 2, and the women conceived and bore a son, and when she saw him, that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months, right? Because she knows that the Egyptians are out to kill all the male children, right? And when she could no longer hide him, she took him an ark of bulrushes and dabbed it with slime and with pitch and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. Okay. Now, this is strategic. You hear a lot of times, like, he just sent her out and down the river, and it was just luck. No, she didn't just send him down the river. She knew what was going on. She's using her mind, and she's protecting her son the best way she knows how. Now, listen to this. This is a mother, how clever they get, all right? And she hit him in, so she put him in the river, and his sister stood afar off to wait and what would be done with him. Now listen who comes along. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river. Probably a daily routine, and these people knew it.
Yeah.
All right? And her maidservants walked along by the riverside, and when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, a baby wept. And she had compassion on him and said, she just had compassion. All right? So that's a good trait in this girl, that she is compassionate because she knows what her dad has said. All right? So she's kind of, and she's Pharaoh's daughter. She can do what she wants, though. You got to think about that, too, in the Pharaoh society, but in the Egyptian society. But anyway, compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrew children. So she knows exactly who he is. Right? There's no doubt. And because you'll hear all kind of things about this. Right? But she knows exactly who he is. Yeah. And said then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call thee a nurse? This is Moses' sister that's talking, right? That said, shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And it's amazing because she knows the mother. Yeah. All right? So, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother, right? Of all things. Yeah. And the Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. So, and not only is she going to have her baby back and take care of it, but she's going to get paid for it. All right? And the women took the child and nursed it. It's its own mother. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and said, because I've drawn him out of the water. Now, Moses in Hebrew means drawn from the water. Now, here's what's funny. Because Moses Egyptian means something else. Moses, like, think about the word Tutmosis. What you're saying is you're saying the son of Tut. All right? Moses means son of. All right? Now, he's going to be son of Ramesses. All right?
Yeah.
All right? But when he comes back, he's just Moses to the people, just the son of. He's not the son of any Moses, not anymore. Does he get Ramesses' name? Or I think it's Ramesses, yeah. But now he's just called the son of, with no title attached to it by the Egyptians. So it's a name that cuts both ways. For the Hebrew people, he's Moses, their deliverer, who was drawn from the water.
Yeah.
To the Egyptian people, he was just once the son of Ramesses. Now he's just the son of.
Son of,
Yeah. And that's what Moses means in Egyptian. So that's just kind of neat the way that all
cool.
rolls, right?
Yeah.
But now, like I said, Moses was Moses was chosen just like Jeremiah then from the very beginning. Okay, now look at the example then we have for the end times. All right, the people who were sealed out of the 144,000 out of the book of Revelations, they're just as chosen as Moses. All right, they were chosen to do these things before the foundations, just like Moses was chosen from before the foundations to deliver the law, to be the lawgiver. All right. Now, Moses, when he's working in God's grace and moving along, is good. All right, he's going to grow up in Pharaoh's household with all the rank and privileges of Pharaoh's son. All right, nursed by his biological mother and cared for by his sister. All right, Moses didn't hurt for one thing, and this was in spite of the fact that an order was given to kill him.
all the sons. Yeah.
Right, all right. So that just goes to show you then when you're working in the last days, the thing about the election is they have to learn to shut their damn mouth. Okay, when it's time to be delivered up, they have nothing to say.
Yeah.
It's time your speaking is over. Now Moses, he's the lawgiver. Before it's all over, he's going to say a lot. You're going to hear. I think you're going to hear a lot of this from Exodus come out of his mouth again.
Yeah.
And it's good to know it ahead of time because then you know what and who you're dealing with when you probably hear it. All right? But nonetheless, I just wanted to point that out that when you are working for God and you're actually in the plan, what I mean by that is you can be in the plan and not be a member not be sealed out of the 144,000, all right? But you can still be just as much a member of the plan. You talk to one person, another person, here or there, and someone wanted to tell you about it. Like we work with all these people, and we know all these people, and they think we're crazy now. But wait till something like the whirlwind shows up. Yeah, we need to go over that lecture again, the whirlwind, because I didn't take you to all the places. The whirlwind is used a few places. It's really cool. It makes you go, Yeah, but when they start saying those things, then they're going to really start asking some questions. People will really start asking questions then, but they're going to be getting the wrong answers.
Yeah.
And so that's where it all gets fun. But that's in the book of Revelation. And that's just part of the witness. Now, what I'm getting at is that even now, though, it's an example that they know now. They know me and you. I mean, think about the girl. I don't want to say her name, but think about the girl we work with. Did you work with? You don't get along real good.
Yeah.
But in the end, when all these things are going on, the things that you say and do matter.
Yeah, they do.
And they'll remember them then, right? So the point is none of it's in vain. I mean, you can take it. I don't want to use that guy, but another weekend.
I got you.
I mean, and the same for them. There's gonna be some real questions being asked, and for the first time, you're gonna see real church people truly seeking for the first time. So they think they got it, but maybe they've lost some stuff right along the way. But
they're gonna be the most scared because
that's right. That's right. Because they don't have any idea.
They thought was gonna happen.
Right. Most of it is the big flyaway. It's most of it is that they're afraid that they look to fly away, and the more you begin to understand, and the more you start to talk to preacher like our preacher friends, because I'm running around sometimes. The more you're going to realize how little they actually comprehend of what they're actually dealing with.
Yep.
And when it says in the book of Genesis, we've dealt in the garden a lot, and it says that he's the most subtle of all the beasts of the fields, and man was a 6-day creation, the same as the beasts of the fields, including in it.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing too. They have to remember that idea. But I should have turned off my notifications. I got all kind of weird stuff to show up on our video. But Yeah, but anyway, yeah, I think that's probably enough for tonight. Where are we at? Where did we stop at? So we stopped at verse 10, so we're on chapter 2, verse 11. All right, and if you're watching online, you guys have a good night, and we'll catch you next week. Chapter 2, verse 11. Let me shut this on.